let me just say that we are finding this is a very important mechanism that for about 3 years now, we have all our meetings recorded and available at YouTube. It took us some time and arrangements to get the permission, since they are allowing 15 minutes short videos. Now, our videos are 1 hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, but it's everything okay. And this is a wonderful use of technology that can help us to share ideas with those who were not have not been able to attend or would like to review something for a year or two in past.
Yes.
Lucia Chuck, hi, nice to see you. There will be 3 representatives from Slovenia.
Hello to everybody. Hello, hello.
Maribor and Lucia Chuck from Primorska University.
Yeah. So I turned on recording. There should have been a banner that came up on your screens that said recording.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And I've also turned on the AI companion meeting summary, which I've used a couple of times, and it's amazingly helpful. Not 100% accurate, but it is very, very good. So
yeah, we use it for the first cut at drafting minutes of a meeting, because it includes all sorts of details that the person recording the meeting might have just omitted.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so I think our video looks okay. The sound seems to be okay. And Jose, if you could mention to people that during our presentation, if they have a question, if they could use the raise hand function, because then that will bring it to the top of the videos for me, so I can see people. Otherwise, I can't see everybody. And I may mention that as well, just for everybody's convenience.
Yeah.
Then the usual thing, if people could mute themselves in case there's a background.
The raise hand is on the React, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it may be visible at the bottom of your screen. If it isn't, then it's the React button, and it'll be in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's React in my case. Yeah.
Yep. So I turned it on right there.
I see William Copps and Michelle Porter have joined us from Manitoba, and they are the people that I will be referring to when I mention the Age-Friendly University Global Network, because they're in charge. It's their baby.
Yeah, I saw that announcement from Aaron Gast. If people here aren't familiar with the Age-Friendly University Global Network, and I assume that you are familiar with it, that it moved from Dublin University to Arizona State University as the headquarters of it, and Aaron Guest now has the secretariat, I think is what they call it. But I think that is also an organization that we will mention briefly in our presentation here, because we have all these various activities going on globally, and the question is, how do they connect to each other? Should they connect to each other? But that's what we'll be talking about in our presentation shortly.
For us, it's very important to know who is there and about who's doing what.
Yes.
It took us some time to discover what's going on in the United States and in Canada. And look, guys, now we are sitting together, offline, of course. I mean, online, not in one room, but we can see each other, we can listen to each other. It's wonderful progress we made in 2 years. Now we know many people who are expressing very similar interests. Eric, I believe now it's time that we start, and let me first just greet all of you coming to this meeting, to this Zoom meeting of our network. I am particularly delighted that we have a presentation of what's going on in Canada and United States, and a contribution from Padova University so that you all would learn that something is moving in Europe too. This is a wonderful privilege to have the presidents of organizations like American organization and Canadian organization of our colleagues, retired professors. That's wonderful. And this is something what we believe is a contribution of exchanging messages and having various sessions so far. My task is very simple. I will just introduce the first chair of the meeting today, Eric Hockett from the University of Minnesota. And let me share short information about who he is, what he did, and what he is doing now. He is a past president of the University of Minnesota Retirees Association with over 800 retired faculty and staff members. I'm delighted of that because I spent 4 semesters in 85 and 87 at Minnesota, at University of Minnesota, Department of Information Systems with Professor Gordon Davis. This was a major lesson I learned and used for next 30 years. He's also a member of Minnesota Age-Friendly University Council. Good name. A past chair of the University Retirees Volunteer Center. An advocate for government legislation supporting retirees in Minnesota. The current chair of the Big Ten Retirees Association with 17 retirement organizations representing over 2,000 members.
Right.
And he is current, congratulations, Eric, president of the Association of Retirement Organizations in Higher Education, with over 100 members organizations in the United States and Canada. He received his PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Illinois and spent over 30 years in industrial research at 3M in St. Paul, Boston Scientific, and as vice president of research at a small optics manufacturing company. He retired in 2016 from the University of Minnesota Office for Technology Commercialization. This office manages intellectual property and licensing agreements and assists in the formation of startup companies who develop products and services based on patents and technological inventions created at the university. He is the right person to represent several things: retirees, universities, age-friendly universities. And Eric, now please take it over and lead this evening's session. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that introduction. And I will be introducing our other presenters in a moment here, but let me bring up, make sure I did this correctly. This may take a moment. So I'll do the usual thing here. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay.
I can. Yeah.
Okay, so let me back up to the beginning here. So as Jose said, we've been discussing for some time, a little bit, to bring us to this point here where we want to talk in a little bit more detail about how we might want to collaborate, work together. We don't know yet, but that's the reason for our discussion today. So as he mentioned, I'm Eric Hockert. I'm in Minnesota in the United States. I'm currently president of the Association of Retirement Organizations in Higher Education that has about 100 member retirement organizations in the United States and Canada. I'm going to talk a little bit about the international aspect of Arohi, at least what the founders were considering about 25 years ago. And then Walter Archer will be speaking. He's the president of the college and university retiree associations in Canada. Walter and I have known each other for maybe a year or so. We're working together on some things associated with a conference related to Orohi. And then Bernard Schreffler is going to talk about a specific example to give us an idea of why we might want to cooperate globally. And I welcome his input on that. So this is what we're going to do today. Talk about a couple of creation stories about how a local retiree association started, how Orohi started, to give an idea of how we got to where we are today. And then Walter is going to talk about, some of the other organizations that exist globally that are related to higher education or retirees. Then we're going to present some key questions about what we might want to consider, some ideas and maybe some proposals to give us a starting point for our discussion, which I hope we and expect to have a lot of time that we can all hear from each other and what we think is the right direction to go. Well, we'll have some specific proposals as some directions for us, as well as some proposed next steps. So with that, let me just start with this. You can read this here, and I'm not even certain where this came from, but this is, I think, a good description of what we're trying to do here. So to start with, I'm going to talk about one local organization, the one that I happen to be most familiar with, the University of Minnesota Retirees Association, and then talk about the Association of Retirement Organizations in Higher Education, how that came to be. So this is the University of Minnesota. Let me just describe a little bit about how this started to give you a flavor for how something might start. Now, the University of Minnesota Retirees Association was started back in 1976, 50 years ago, by a small group of retired faculty and staff who had lunch together regularly, and they enjoyed meeting with each other over lunch, and they wanted to continue to do that in retirement, to continue their get-togethers while they were still working. Now, this series of lunches and when they got together were established. They were eventually expanded to include guest speakers. So they thought, well, we've talked with each other quite a bit. Maybe we should invite some others to chat with us as well. So from those very early days where they had speakers and other activities, those things have aligned with what today are the three primary areas of interest for this local retirees association, which, as Jose had mentioned, we now have over 800 members, approaching 900 members today. And it was to stay informed, to stay engaged with the university and with each other, and to serve the university community as well as the surrounding community. Now, we've had university presidents, state and local leaders. We've had the governor of Minnesota talk to us, as well as media, TV personalities, and others have regularly been featured speakers at our monthly luncheons, which is one of our keynotes, or one of our major things that we do to bring people together. Now we also have special interest groups that have taken off, photography club, book clubs, hiking clubs, finance and legal clubs that we call special interest groups, or I think University of Michigan calls them shared interest groups, which I think is a better title, actually. Allowing the members to interact with others around shared topics and passions. Now, the commitment to supporting and serving others has led to a CARES committee, C-A-R-E-S committee, which reaches out to members and families experiencing loss or grief, and a University Retiree Volunteer Center, which matches retiree skills and talents with university and community needs. I know before COVID, we had contributions of about 10,000 person hours from about 100 people out of a total database of maybe 400 people in this volunteer center who contribute their time to various projects, both inside the university as well as outside of the university. Now, leadership, planning, and communications have been the charge of a 20-person board of directors for UMRA, as well as a team of liaisons who have been created to keep the organization, UMRA, connected with other university units, for example, central administration, faculty governments, alumni affairs, as well as the Board of Regents. At least in Minnesota, I don't know how other higher educations refer to their high-level oversight but here in Minnesota, it's the Board of Regents. We have a connection with them as well to let them know that there is this resource of retirees from the university that they can consult. We aren't pushing any of our demands on the regents. We're just there to assist them as they work to do things in the best interest of the University of Minnesota. So we're available to them and have a very good relationship with them. Now, there have been several developments in UMRA's history that we think set it apart among higher education retiree associations, although many of these may be present within other retiree associations. In 2008, UMRA, our retiree association, and the Office of the Vice President for Research inside of the university jointly announced a program of professional development grants. So these are small dollar grants that are intended to support retirees wishing to pursue projects related to their research while they were working at the University of Minnesota, so that they continue their research, maybe some of their instruction or other work history. Over 100 grants have been awarded, contributing to the reputation of the University of Minnesota as well as the intellectual life of retirees. Now, in 2017, our retiree association and the Office of the Provost, who's the person as kind of the chief operating officer for the university, and the provost reports to the president. Again, I don't know how other institutions are organized, but we signed a memorandum of understanding, so a written document describing the relationship between our retiree association and the University of Minnesota, demonstrating support for our respective missions, goals, and programs. This MOU has formalized UMRA's home within the university's provost office. Now, included in the MOU was recognition of some organizational changes that we made within UMRA to bring together the Volunteer Center and the Retiree Association. They had separated and then they came back together. And with over 500 registered volunteers prior to COVID and the reaffiliation, the Retiree Association's Volunteer Center is now uniquely poised to address and positively impact the university and community needs. At least we hope so. So that's a little bit of the kind of the creation story. So I just wanted to share that to give you a sense for how an organization might develop at the local level. Now, let me just talk a little bit about AROHE and how that was formed to form a basis a little bit for our further conversations. Now, the purpose of AROHE, the Association of Retirement Organizations in Higher Education, is, in our kind of guiding statement, is we recognize that higher education retirees are valuable assets to society, reinventing, not retiring from life, positively impacting their communities and contributing to the greater good. Now, within the bylaws that were written, I can't remember, about 20 years ago or so, it says right in here, so let me just read this, the bylaws preamble. The Association of Retirement Organizations in Higher Education has been established as an international network of retiree organizations at colleges and universities. AROHE fosters the development and sharing of ideas to assist member organizations in achieving their purposes and goals. The association provides an organizational base to connect with national and international education communities, exchange information and ideas with other retiree organizations, help shape emerging retirement models and programs, and heighten the value of retiree institution community connections. So that's right in our bylaws of this international aspect. Now, we're international between the United States and Canada. There may be some ways we can be more international global, but that remains for the latter part of our discussion here. Going back, and I won't go on too long here, but just beginning in 1984, to give you a sense for how long ago this started, there were some informal meetings among academic retirement organizations that ultimately led to AROHE, incorporated as a nonprofit in 2002. So from 1984 to 2002, there were discussions, informal discussions. And their original goal back then was to provide resources and connections to increase retirees' value to their colleges and universities, their communities and professions in the areas of philanthropy, advocacy on behalf of the institution, volunteerism, institutional knowledge, and commitment. Now, those things continue to guide our work to transform retirement for academic retirees and to help institutions of higher education to recognize, value, and tap the enormous reservoir of talents, connections, and expertise that retirees possess. I think as retirees, we have a lot to offer, and the reason for us getting together in part is to support each other, but also to support our universities, our higher education institutions, as well as our communities globally. At least I hope so. Now, conversations about the organization's formation continued, from 1984, and at a 2001 meeting, the name was developed and chosen, and work began to incorporate the organization as a 501c3 nonprofit. I don't know if that's a United States thing. I think it is. But what that means is, as a nonprofit designated as a 501c3, contributions and donations are tax deductible. The limitation is we can't be involved with political activities. For example, we can't advocate for a particular political candidate, asking people to vote for a particular candidate. We see that as a minor restriction on us, however. We can advocate for other things, just not politically. AROHI officially became a nonprofit and held its inaugural conference at Indiana University. The conference brochure invited attendees to, quote, help launch AROHI as a new international organization and help fulfill its mission to provide a forum for the sharing and development of ideas, to learn about creative developments, to exchange ideas, and to be energized. Also in 2002, a confederation of Canadian retiree associations came together to form the College and University Retiree Associations of Canada, with goals similar to AROHI's, and Walter's going to chat about that in just a second here. In 2014, the conference was held at the University of Minnesota, where I'm located, and it was also scheduled to follow the Big Ten Retirees Association Conference in Minneapolis to explore mutually beneficial ways for the two organizations to collaborate on ways to engage retired faculty and staff. Turns out that I am now the chair of the Big Ten Retirees Association, succeeding Al Hermsen, who I think is on the call today, who hosted the Big Ten Retirees Association Conference last summer in Ann Arbor in Michigan. So today, to finish up today, AROHI is well positioned to continue its mission and goal to transform retirement for academic retirees and to highlight the value that retired faculty and staff bring to their institutions of higher education. So we just wanted to start with those kind of creation stories to give you an idea of how both a local organization came to be, as well as this AROHI came to be. There might be some other things that we can do, and we will explore that here. Just a little bit more about AROHI and some of the original ideas that they have. The things that we can pursue within AROHI, just like within any organization, depending on the resources that we have. AROHI is 100% volunteer. We do have an executive director that's half-time, but that's the only paid staff that we have. Everything else is volunteers. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Walter. Walter?
Thanks, Eric. That was very interesting and very useful, particularly your discussion about your home in the Retiree Association at the University of Minnesota. I'm going to look at that very closely and discuss it with CURAC people. First of all, Eric included this map. That was his idea, not mine, but it reminds me that there's something very important about Canada that probably people need reminding of. Canada has a population of about 40 million people. And Eric, can you wave your cursor over Edmonton?
Does the cursor show up?
Yeah, looks good. Thank you.
All right, there.
That's where I'm located. This is the capital of the province of Alberta. It's the most northerly of our big cities, and by Canadian standards, anything that's getting close to 1 million is a big city. Edmonton is a bit over. Well, about 2% of the population of Canada lives further north than Edmonton. Our population is heavily clustered along the southern U.S. border. Those three territories, they're not provinces, up in the north, those taken together comprise more than a third of the area of Canada, but in total, those three areas have a population of about 100,000 people. So that is a fraction of 1% of the population. By the way, that their area is also more than a third of the population of Europe for Europeans on the call. So our retiree associations, in some way, they correspond to this distribution of population because the big universities are clustered along the south. The University of Toronto, our biggest institution, has about 100,000 students. Many of our colleges, there are about 280 total colleges and universities. I think there are, about 150 degree granting universities, and the rest are colleges which don't grant degrees. Those, again, are clustered in our big cities mostly, but not all. Some of those small institutions don't have retiree associations for one reason: they are simply so small. For example, in the Yukon Territory, there's the one university in the Northern Territories. It's in the city of Whitehorse, the capital of Yukon, which is the big city there. It has a population of about 30,000 people. There is a university there. It was a college, became a university a few years ago. That's the only university to date, except at Nunavut, the light blue area on the far right, is going to establish a university in Nunavut, mostly for preservation of culture, I believe, but also other purposes. I thought they were going to establish it in Iqaluit, their big city, which is on the extreme right there. It has a population of about 8,000, but they've decided no, they're going to establish it in another place, Arviat, which is near the southern border of Nunavut and Manitoba. That city has a population of about 3,000. So the university that will be established there, I expect, will have a student enrollment in the hundreds, maybe. So that there's enormous variation. There's another variant, which is an ongoing issue for CURAC, is that about 20 to 25, about more than a fifth, less than a quarter of our population speaks French as native language. They're heavily concentrated in Quebec, so that CURAC has 44 members, but it is missing, of course, lots and lots of associations, including the big ones in Quebec. We have a couple of them, but not all of them. So that's an issue in Canada, which the United States does not face. Next slide, please. So we are, as Eric mentioned, we're linked, and our presidents can attend each other's conferences free. And I'm currently serving on one of Arohi's committees, which is planning their next conference, and they're going to hold it in Florida. And I told them, if you're going to hold it in Florida, make it in January, because they're going to do it in October when the weather's still fairly nice in Edmonton. But those Americans, they never listen to wise advice. Anyway, next slide. So again, it's very like Arohi. We had a number of these institution-based retiree associations. They existed before there was a national association. They existed, I'm not sure when the first ones, certainly in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they got together to form CURAC 1 year after AROHI was formed. CURAC was formed in 2003 in much the same procedure. Next slide, please. There are two types of institution of these organizations, both Canada and I believe the United States. One of them focuses on just emeriti. And this, I'm sorry, are you hearing a lot of noise? We have a good neighbor here who uses his snowblower to.
Yeah, no, Walter, we don't. I think the noise canceling function of Zoom is working very well, so we don't hear any background.
Well, my good friend and neighbor is clearing my walk right now. So
That's a good
I'm
neighbor.
going to wave to thank him for that. Otherwise, I'd have to get out my shovel and do it myself. We had quite a bit of snow last night. Anyway, the two types of local associations, one is for emeriti, that is professors, and it varies by institution. How you get to be an emeritus or emerita. Sorry, I had to stand up and wave to my neighbor and thank him for clearing my walk.
That's a good thing. Good thing to do.
The other type includes staff, and that makes it generally larger and more inclusive and less of a scholarly function and more on a social, cultural, institutional function. And Eric's institution, which he described in detail, seems to have a lot of that social community building function. And that's a good thing about that type. Next, please. There's another thing that is connected to some, not very many, but a few of these larger retiree associations. And there are three of them mentioned across the top, Berkeley and UCLA, and both in California. University of British Columbia in Vancouver. And that's one I'm familiar with. I had a friend who retired and lived there. And it's on the University of British Columbia campus, which is a big campus. They've got room for it. And people who retire as professors, that's one option for them. They can go and live there and maintain a connection with the university walking distance. So that's, again, as Eric pointed out, it maintains the university family connection. Next, please. There's some other models of what we might be looking at today. And one of them is the University of the Third Age, which has, again, it was first created in 1973 at the University of Toulouse in France. And it was connected to the university, and it had university professors giving lectures of interest to people who are not university students, just in the neighborhood. And that French model of University of Third Age persists today. I understand it's very common in Europe and some other parts of the world, possibly Australia.
Yes,
but then there was... Then there was a British model developed about a decade later, and that's when the University of the Third Age is formed independent of any conventional university. Now that model also exists in North America, and those institutions are not always called University of the Third Age. The one that I work for, or do a lot of volunteer work for, is called Edmonton Lifelong Learners Association. And across Canada, and I think mostly in the States, that name, University of the Third Age, is not used, except in the province of Quebec it is used. I think that's the direct influence of France. But anyway, there's a worldwide network. And interestingly, the president of that network is the son of the professor at the University of Toulouse, who basically created the first university of the Third Age. Anyway, that's a model that we might think about. And the other one is the Age-Friendly University, which originated at City College, no, Central University Dublin. I maybe got that wrong. Anyway, in Dublin. And as Eric said, its world headquarters is now moved to Arizona State. But it is a different sort of institution. It works with some people still in employment at universities. And its goal is to make the universities inclusive of older people, including those who have retired from the university. And this is another model that we might look at. And fortunately, the University of Manitoba in Canada has recently taken on the role of the coordinator, or that's probably not what they call it, of the North American section of this worldwide global network. And one of the people on the call, Michelle Porter, is one of the co-directors of that effort at the University of Manitoba. And one of the CURAC board members, Bill Copps, he's also at the University of Manitoba and has had some association with Age-Friendly University. And he is also available to speak to that possibility during this call. The other thing that was mentioned by someone in an earlier session, UNESCO, as a potential for a model. Now, I don't know anything much about UNESCO, and I wasn't able to locate anything that might be the model except, let's see, they have a global network of learning cities. I wonder if that might be what that person had in mind. Anyway, there is a global network there. Next slide, please.
Yep, come on. Yeah, well, now it's not working.
Well,
okay.
The next slide has to do with European, so next two slides, European networks. The first one is Professors Emeriti Network.
There. Is this the next slide?
Yep, got it.
Okay.
And this is, Jose will be able to talk about this. That is another possible model. It differs from Arohi and CURAC in that the members are individuals. Individuals become members of this network rather than associations. Like CURAC is an association of 44 local retiree associations. Professors Emeriti Network is different. It is individuals who join it. Next slide, please. Here's another one. The European Association for Professors Emeriti. Again, it has a focus which is quite academic to allow retired professors to continue their scientific work and talk about it and engage in mentorship, interdisciplinary collaboration. And it's across continent, and it is, again, it's individuals who join it, not local associations. Again, a potential model. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the goal of this meeting? And there are some possibilities. What we're trying to do, we're trying to add value to our institutions. Are we preserving what we already have in our minds, in our brains, in our social networks? And are we going to create a global dialogue in which we can learn from people who are far away, but who have somewhat similar objectives in very different places and may carry them out differently so that we might learn from them? Next slide, please. So is this one of mine, Eric, or is it yours?
No, I think this is yours, and I think this is related to the European Association of Professors Emeriti.
Okay, right. Okay. Yes, sorry. I should have been on to that. This is the goal of this European Association. So it does philanthropy, but it's also a resource center for the institutions and also advocacy and networking. So these are things that our retiree associations do too, but in a different way. Sorry about that. Next slide, please. Now this one is yours because it's about Arohi.
Yes. And before I talk about this, I should have introduced Walter a little bit more properly. So Walter Archer is Professor Emeritus at the University of Alberta, as he had mentioned, where he specialized in adult distance and higher education. And also, as Walter and I both mentioned, he is the current president of the College and University Retiree Associations of Canada, CURAC. So I just want to mention a little bit about something that has recently been formed within Arohi, and that's a virtual chapter. Now, this is something that we have set up as a way for individuals, as opposed to organizations, become members of Arohi. So this is designed, as it says here, to serve as a worldwide organization for individual retirees, both faculty and staff, who do not have a local retiree association associated with their school. Now, we currently plan within several years to grow this substantially. The fee to join is not that much, $20 to join this organization, which exists today. Our stated goal for the first year is 1,000. I should mention that we have less than 100, but we do have maybe 70 people that have already joined this organization. In that URL down at the bottom there, you can learn a little bit more about that if you'd like. So I just wanted to mention that as an example of a way that we are working to expand Arohi to serve a broader community of higher education people. So let me introduce our next presenter, and I'll say a little bit about that. But let me mention first, Bernard Schreffler, who some of you may know, is Professor Emeritus at the University of Padua and Hans Fischer Senior Fellow Alumnus at the Institute for Advanced Studies in Munich. The reason for his interest in scientific ethics is that he has served and continues to serve on several evaluation committees. Among these roles, he was chair of panel PE8, Advanced Grants at the European Research Council, and over the past 3 years, a member of the pre-selection committee for the Nobel Sustainability Trust, NST Awards. He is also associate editor of Biomedical Microdevices, a Springer Nature journal, where they get a weekly roundup from the editorial community on ethics issues in scientific publishing. So what he's going to talk about in just a second here is an example of a reason or a topic that could suggest a reason for global cooperation. So just with that, Bernard, let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So can you move to the next slide? So thank you, Eric, for the introduction, and thank you for allowing me to address this problem, which is scientific misconduct, which is a big problem worldwide now. And in Italy, we try to address this through the Emeriti and need your help and input because there's quite a lot of resistance to move forward. Now, a global cooperation would be a benefit to all. Next slide, please. Scientific misconduct is a growing concern because acts against research ethics have increased markedly in recent years. Just look at Science and Nature, almost every issue there is something about that. And the key contributing factors are intensified pressure to publish or perish, and in Italy, but I think also elsewhere, the evaluation system for career advancement and research funding that prioritize quantity over quality. And the consequences are a rising number of publications containing plagiarized, falsified, or fabricated data, and a severe distortion of the scientific credibility, which affects us all, especially now, which science is under attack. Then public health decision-making, just think about the claimed association between vaccines and autism, all the havoc it created, based on a retracted paper. Then training on career development of young scientists and societal progress as a whole. So next slide, please. And the means, I mean, how this is brought forward, the misconduct are paper mills. They come mainly from Asia and China. Then review mills, we have them also in Italy, where they have templates for how to answer them. Then citation ring. Then on a personal level, a more personal level is data fabrication, data falsification, plagiarism, and multiple publication of self-plagiarism. Next slide, please. And I think scientific misconduct is effectively considered as a form of fraud, as it involves the manipulation, falsification, or fabrication of data, or plagiarism for the purpose of gaining profit, academic or financial, by misleading the scientific community. Now, these actions corrupt the research project, often leading to the retraction of scientific articles by journals. And now, the retraction process is quite a lengthy process, usually takes 1 or 2 years, and the actors involved are the authors, then whistleblowers, then sleuths, editor, and the publisher through their legal offices, for instance, the Integrity Assurance and Case Resolution Team of Wiley or similar things as that. Now, if a paper is retracted, means it is the science's death penalty for a paper. It was Brainerd described in Science. And prior to retraction, you find a lot of information in PubPeer, and inventory of all retracted papers you find in Retraction Watch. Every day you get new news. It's quite interesting to watch it. Next slide, please. Now, if a paper is retracted, it doesn't disappear. It remains in the journal's collection, but has printed on the first page, retracted. And as far as numbers are concerned, there are roughly about 4 papers retract every 10,000 papers published. Out of these, 40% are honest errors. That means they are asked by the authors themselves, but the remainder is related to fraud, multiple publication, plagiarism. Now, what we have often is repeat offenders. I mean, if somebody gets through once, it repeats it, because 2% of scientists are responsible for 25% of all retractions. So next slide, please. So what do the universities? The Academy and Italian scientific institutions respond to all this by issuing extensive and detailed regulations to protect the integrity of research, but rules that don't cost a lot. However, unlike in other European countries or in the Anglo-Saxon context, these regulations seem to have only rarely led to truly incisive corrective initiatives. Next slide, please. So the non-profit funding bodies like Bank Foundation and others are starting to ask themselves why they should fund individuals who have been justifiably sanctioned by external bodies, journal in this case, and who as such have violated the code of scientific ethics, caused harm to science, and set a damaging example for young researchers. And here we have first result. Next slide, please. The Bank Foundation, Cassa di Risparmio di Padua and Rovigo of Padua, who finances the University of Padua with roughly 20 million euros a year, has put for their FLAC project, for instance, they give 400,000 euros for natural science and engineering and life sciences, and 200,000 euros for project in human and social sciences, they require the applicants to sign the following statement. I further declare under my own responsibility that I am not the author of any retracted scientific articles. Should this not be the case, I undertake to submit to the Foundation in writing the reasons for the retraction. I declare that the information contained in this statement is true and accurate, and I assume all legal responsibility arising from any false or misleading declaration. I'm aware that the Foundation, including with the possible assistance of external experts, reserves to the right to verify the accuracy and truthfulness of the statements made. Now, this is a first in Italy. I don't know elsewhere. Next slide, please. We have also to remember that those who defraud science also create potential financial or material damage to the university. That's just the case in Retraction Watch in January, that the researcher accused of falsifying research in work funded by the National Institute of Health has cost a Northwestern University $2.3 million. So it is, next slide, please. Why we propose that the following to be included in the Code of Ethics of the University of Padua as a precautionary measure. It shall be considered inappropriate for a faculty member or researcher who is the author or co-author of one or more retracted publications on the basis of the journal's own investigation and assessment, and who is unable to demonstrate complete lack of involvement in the reasons that led to the retraction, to hold elective or appointed academic position, rector, vice rector, delegate, head of department, and so on, then participate as candidate in competitions for career advancement, that's a bit more difficult, and participate in selection procedures as a member of the examining committee. Now, this proposal comes from another group of emeriti from the University of Florence. So next slide, please. So what I've shown is an example of the benefits that could be obtained from communication among academics in different places and countries. We need information on how this problem is tackled elsewhere with support. Thank you. So we need your help, I mean. It's not easy to do.
Well, thank you, Bernard. I think this is an excellent example of one of the things that we may want to consider in terms of why we would want to collaborate on a global scale, because I think what Bernard has talked about is a global concern, not to any country, not to any individual institutions, but globally, as I understand the issue. So thank you, Bernard, for bringing this to our attention. I think this is a very good example. So what I'd like to do, yeah, thank you. So what I'd like to do now is to move on to some potential directions for us to kind of guide our conversation and our discussion in the time that we have left. So there's a couple of possible next steps. I think, as was mentioned earlier, and I think Walter had talked about things related to this, we could continue to build this Retired Professors Associations network and strengthen the links that exist between the various organizations around the planet. Digitally, we could have a website, and I think that's what Jose has set up now, where we share links to our individual organizations. That's one thing that we could do and continue to do, which I think is a good thing. Another thing that we have talked about separately is the idea of having organizations that are at a more local level. For example, at the University of Minnesota Retirees Association, most of the people, not everybody, but the vast majority live in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota area, where we can get together in person. That isn't always possible for people. For example, as I understand, the European Association of Professors Emeriti is a distributed system, not associated with any individual higher education institution in Europe, at least as I understand it, or this virtual retirement chapter, the VRC within AROHE, where we are making available to individuals in the United States, Canada, as well as worldwide to join a virtual, digital, online only organization, which would be a part of Arohi, which is a part of Arohi as an organization. It's still in its formative stages, so I don't know that we have leaders yet. I think there are about 70 people. We want to grow that substantially, 1,000, a couple thousand, 5,000 people. That's aspirational. We'll see if we get there or not. But the idea of having local, geographically defined groups that could then become part of a broader organization or a hybrid route, collaboration across CURAC, Arohi, European networks, developing something where there could be more of both online, maybe in-person collaborations. Or we could do nothing and, wait for the situation to evolve. So these are some of the possibilities that we've discussed, but I'll be interested, and we'll all be interested in the discussion that we'll have in just a second here. So here are some questions, ideas, and proposals, not specific things that we are saying should be done, but just to give us a start to our discussion today, to stimulate some discussion. For example, what is it that we want to accomplish with this linking of groups of retired academics across nations and beyond? What is the relationship among some of the key groups that already exist today, as you see listed here and that we've discussed? There are other organizations, UNESCO has come up in the conversation, and Walter and I don't know too much about that. We'd be interested in learning some more about what the suggestion was for connecting with the United Nations. The Age-Friendly University Global Network, the University of the Third Age. In the United States, there's OLLI, O-L-L-I, which is similar to the University of the Third Age, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, which is a lifelong learning organization that has various chapters around the United States. In the University of Minnesota, we have one of those, as well as individuals who do not have organizations that they can be a part of or associated with. How do we address some of those individuals' needs? And just one more page related to some questions to stimulate our discussion here. When we talk about this network, do we intend to carry out other activities in addition to sharing website links? Are there other things that we can do? Are there potential points of conflict? So we have all these organizations. Are we all trying to do the same thing in the same categories of retirees? Are we at cross purposes with each other? Are we competing with each other? Or is there a way for us to cooperate, collaborate with each other in a way that is beneficial to everybody? Do we want this to be a global group? I mean, that's quite an aspiration and could be years in development. We are at the very beginning stages of thinking about something like this. We have the potential. We have some connections here globally already by the people that are on the call today. How do we come together? Do we want to come together? Do we want to support each other? How can we complement each other? And then finally, what else is important for us to understand at this point? So with that, here is a proposed next step. We aren't saying we have to do this. We're just suggesting this for our conversation is what is it that we want to accomplish together? And what we're suggesting for discussion is to form a small global action group, maybe 3 to 5 people, not too many people, not too few people. 3 to 5 seem to be about right in terms of communication, just getting people scheduled and everything. That this group would review today's discussion, which is being recorded, by the way. And I also have the AI companion turned on, which is surprisingly good. I've learned over the past couple of weeks or so to review today's discussion and then to formulate a path forward, including the purpose and the organizational structure, then come back to this group and say, this is what we are proposing. Do we have leaders that are going to step up and actually do something here in addition to the many, many things that have already been done? So with that, I'd like to open it up for discussion, and I'd like to stop sharing here and turn it back to Jose. So Jose, if you'd like to take it from here.
I think, Eric, you started a wonderful direction. What we can discuss and could discuss today. Sorry, saying tonight, it's our time, your morning time, and
Yes.
Early morning in Australia.
Yes, very.
So, Eric, just carry it on. I would just express my personal view that this is very important. There are thousands of retired professors that are not connected. To be more direct, who are disconnected from what they used to be in university. They are retired, they are gone, they disappear. What a pity. One, for personal reasons, individuals, some, not many, not very many, would like to stay in touch, engaged, involved. And they cannot because they are disconnected. And from the university perspective, this is a very valuable capital, which may be lost. It's not smart. And from the country perspective, there are not many active people who would like to work after they retire, and they can contribute a lot, particularly as Eric, you said, we are all volunteers. We are not asking for money. We would just like to do something smart and good for ourselves and for colleagues and with the others. From this perspective, we have a wonderful start at this meeting. Please carry it on.
Okay, so Jose, would you like me to host the discussion then? Nope, you're muted. Jose, would you like me to lead the discussion then?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead. And
Okay.
you mentioned before the meeting that you would invite everybody who would like to discuss to raise online hand with the button so you would know how to engage people.
Yes. Thank you
The
for that.
focus is, as you completed your presentation,
Yep.
what can we do together? Something smart and good.
Yep. So as Jose mentioned, although the reason I mentioned for the raise hand function is I can now see everybody on the screen, but if you raise your hand, I can call on you. So Heinz, yes.
Hi. Look, very interesting. I found that Bernhard Scheffler's report most interesting. Look, since retirement, I've actually not been that interested in continuing my academic work. I retired to go travelling in the outback of Australia, and by and large, I've done that. But having been an academic for so long, you can't actually leave it. For some years, there were some PhD students that still wanted some assistance, and I had been doing quite a lot of peer review of journal articles, which I found very interesting and kept my mind working. And you could choose when to do that and how much time to invest and so on. And like a journal article, I tend to, I don't know, look, I spend 40 hours or more. I know that's probably a heck of a lot, but I want to do the job once and do it right and thoroughly. Now, that's pretty much the only academic type activity aside from being involved in this organisation and so on. Now, in the continuing work of this peer review, I have noticed over the years there is a gradual decline in the quality of the articles being submitted, and concomitant with that, there is a tendency, which I will put in the category of doing mischief. I'm being quite polite here. I mean, Bernhard would recognise this as misconduct, i.e. plagiarism. And, you know, to pick that up is a lot of work. Now, to do that, you need good IT. In my home and in my office and so on, I've got terrific bandwidth. I've got very good computing facilities and so on. I don't need that from my university. I don't want an email from the university. I want to have my own independent organisation. But the one thing that I do miss very, very much, and I've mentioned this in numerous meetings, it seems to be a bit of a hobby horse, I suppose you might call it, or something. Anyway, something very important. I miss access to the bibliographic databases. Now, that's something an individual can't do easily. My best option would be to pay for an article. So that's 14 Australian dollars or 14 US dollars and so on. And I might need 10 or 20 or 30 of those. Look, I'm retired. I haven't got a budget for that. I want to spend my budget buying diesel to go out into the outback with my four-wheel drive. Yeah, sorry, make a bit of pollution as well. But that's what, and say good day to these fellas like in the background there, from a distance, by the way. So if your Arohi organisation would set itself a task, possibly of arranging access to bibliographic databases, maybe through a university and so on, that would be very useful for me, but I think also for lots of other people as well. I'm actually on another screen joining the Rohi. I'm trying to find a way to put in my Australian address and pay the $20. I want to join up and agitate for you guys in Rohi to get the bibliographic database access organised.
Okay, yes, thank you, Heinz. I'm looking at the chat here, and I don't know if you've ever hosted a Zoom meeting with all the new functionality, but my screen is just full of all kinds of information. So excuse me if I'm missing some of the things in the chat. But Karen, you had mentioned something about the University of Massachusetts Lowell and UNESCO. Did you want to comment on that for us?
Well, I wish I knew more, but I don't. I think the follow-up email will be very helpful from Nina Silverstein, because she's also in your chat. But yes, we just met with one of the folks who was instrumental in organizing that effort over a number of years. I mean, I think like 8 years before they actually received that designation. And that was held in mid-January. So this is very new, but I can certainly see how that could be very important for us to tag along with, or we tag along to that group to see if we can't expand on some of the opportunities that we have for retired and emeriti faculty and staff.
Yeah, I think we'd be interested in learning more about UNESCO or the United Nations. You know, I have very little familiarity with that, but I remember at our last discussion, I'm trying to remember, I think the name of the person that had suggested that, the last name was Saner, if I remember right. I don't see that.
Josh Raymond, he is a retired professor from Basel University in Switzerland.
Okay.
And he has an active relation with the United Nations office in Geneva, in Switzerland. He is not attending this meeting. He registered, but he's not visible on the screen. But he has ties with the UNESCO organization, and he's expressing interest in doing something which would be close to what UNESCO would like to achieve. So far, as I think Walter mentioned, I didn't find any connection that UNESCO already has with retired professors. So we are far apart. But maybe there are some things we could do together and support each other.
Okay. You know, another thing that Walter and I were wondering about is with the European Association of Professors Emeriti. Again, we aren't familiar with that. And I can't remember if the person who is associated with that most closely is on our call today, but we'd be interested in learning more about that, if not today, maybe another time. I'm also looking at the chat here. David, you had commented about opportunities to influence various things. Did you want to say something about that? Because I have some comments about that might be helpful.
I've unmuted my mic. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, David.
I'm not sure. I've lost the make the video available, but my thought is that for many people, not only retired academics, but many people don't have access to peer-reviewed information in many areas. And I think as we see what I think is somewhat of a deterioration in public discussion, part of it is that people rely on stuff that comes often unsolicited. Usually people get it not through a subscription process where they pay for journalists, but from the Rage machine. And I think it's a public policy problem that might underlie many of the issues that affect us in America and Canada today. Including having an informed electorate.
Yeah, David, I don't know where you're located or what your home institution is, but here in Minnesota, and this may not apply to all universities or higher education institutions in the United States. So Walter, I'm not sure about Canada, and I know in other parts of the world, once somebody retires from a university, higher education institution, they are immediately cut off both their email and their access to digital online resources. Here at the University of Minnesota, if you're a faculty member who retires, you automatically become a emeriti with continued access, not only to your email, but to all of the online databases, the bibliographic information, the scientific publications that are available here at the University of Minnesota. I should say you become a emeriti automatically unless you commit a crime. Like if you shoot somebody, but it has to be pretty severe before you become a emeriti. Yes, Walter.
I just wanted to comment on this. First of all, David Zittner is in Halifax. He's retired from Dalhousie University, and he also is on the board of CURAC.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he's also chairing the healthcare policy committee of CURAC. So he's very familiar with advocacy issues as well as the situation at his university. I just wanted to comment.
I'll just answer the question. At Dalhousie, people who've retired faculty have access. At other universities, I remember reviewing a program at the U of T, and they enable everyone, as I understood it, including the public, to get paywall-free access to the library material for $200 a year, and they be higher now.
Yeah, this varies enormously from one institution to the next, I've discovered over the past few months. Some places are very open, some are very closed.
Yeah. You know, David, one of the comments I wanted to make is that there are a couple of avenues available. One, within the United States, I don't know if AARP is a global organization. Maybe that's just
it is.
Okay.
Here we have CARP,
okay.
Canadian.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm a government advocate for the Minnesota chapter of AARP. In fact, tomorrow I'm going down to the state capitol to begin the process of advocating for some legislative issues that we're concerned about, and some of those are related to healthcare and health insurance kinds of things. The second thing is within our retiree association and the Big Ten Retirees Association conference hosted here by Minnesota next summer. One of the topics that we'll be discussing is how do our retiree associations gather our voice together to advocate for something of interest to us as retirees or things that we think at a societal level. So that'll be an interesting conversation. Here in Minnesota, we have had letters to the editor. We have representatives on the Faculty Governance Senate here at the University of Minnesota from our retirees associations. We have a number of channels for that. I don't know if that answers your comment or question directly, but there are several opportunities. Michelle, yes, please.
I'll just say briefly something about your discussion around advocating on a variety of broad issues that really aren't connected specifically to universities. I think making connections to lots of different retiree organizations would be good for that purpose, because that is a big focus of a lot of retiree organizations, is advocating for healthcare, better benefits, etc. Not benefits like healthcare, public healthcare, etc. in the Canadian situation. But more on the connection with the organizations and AFU. I am new to the role of being the regional lead for North America, but I think certainly it would be great to make more formal connections with Arohi and other organizations. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it'd be great to have you come, Eric, and do a presentation at one of our network meetings. I think I'd like to hear more about some of the things that you're doing specifically at your university. And given the membership of the North American region of the Global Network, where there's more than 100 US institutions, I think people would probably be interested in hearing about the National Organization for Associations as well. So if you're keen, I'd be happy to invite you to one of our meetings to do a presentation. And because, one of the principles of Nature and the University is engaging with retirees. So that would be great. And then one other point I will make, another group that you might want to connect with that wasn't mentioned is the Gerontological Society of America. Has a group on age inclusivity and education. And so that's another organization that you might want to make.
Yes, and Michelle, I'd be delighted to do that.
Great. I'll be in touch.
Okay. Yes, William.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, just a comment. I'm Bill Costa from the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, Canada. Just to comment on the charge, I think that you or the possibilities that you had on a slide, Eric, as to kind of what do we do? Do we sit back and do nothing, or do we do a number of these things? I mean, it's always struck me when there's multiple organizations that are focused and intent on doing similar things that we don't create another. It always seems best to me to look at the opportunities around and in between what these organizations do. Look for that space where we can leverage benefit to all, or at least to most of those that exist already. And Walter identified a number of organizations, and others have been discussed that are focused on this idea of retired university faculty and staff, and their intents are all good. So the idea of a working group, you mentioned 3 to 5 people to sort of take a look at where we go from here. I guess I would encourage, if that group is formed, I would encourage that group to take a look at where those spaces are, where those opportunities are to work and therefore bring benefit to the collective. I certainly wouldn't advocate creating another organization to attempt to make all of this happen, but really work with the groups that are there. And of course, these kinds of meetings, including other folks that may join in from UNESCO and other sorts of organizations, is important.
Yep, I think that's good advice. Thank you. I have a chat note from Carol Lynn. You mentioned the Age Friendly University Network and PION, PION, which has tons of connections with WHO and related organizations. And then I think you went on to say that you're familiar with the European Association of Professors Emeriti. Carol Lynn, let's see, where are you? Did you want to comment on that?
I'm here. Yes. I just want to see more liaisons going on, not new organizations.
Okay.
And I belong, yes, to the European Association of Professor Emeriti, and involved with several of their scientific sections, as we call it. So we can do the same thing here in Canada. And I think the Age Friendly University, Michelle Porter and Bill can probably move us way ahead in that direction.
Okay.
Move North America way ahead. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Let me see. Yes, Bernard.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to add that why retired professors should deal also with scientific misconduct is that active professors are reluctant to be involved because of fear of retaliation. And we tried also to contact some politicians, and the reaction was, very nice, but go ahead, but please let me out.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Bernard. Al. Good to see you, Al.
Yep. Sorry, I don't have my picture up. I had some
treatments on my eye this morning that
Okay.
I have to kind of keep my lights down and stuff. So, but I
Okay.
just had a couple of comments. Is that I think just establishing our connections between each other just can go a long ways. I did a presentation on what we did at Michigan at the last meeting that we had of this group, and from that I had connections from people from faculty members from the retired emeriti faculty from Basel, and I think we talked for an hour and a half on sharing ideas. So establishing these connections through a group like this is fantastic. We also talked with a couple of professors from, or emeriti professors from the University of Saskatchewan who wanted to know about our health day, because we each year have a day where we just talk about health issues for senior citizens. And from that conversation, they are going to take their annual meeting and turn it into a health day following our example. We also, with University of Michigan, is in Ann Arbor, Michigan, only about an hour away from the University of Windsor in Canada. And so the president of that association and I had a conversation, and we're going to do an exchange between our two organizations, even though we're in different countries, where we'll attend one of their meetings, they can attend one of ours, both of them with the goal of trying to improve what we do to help our faculty and staff. So I think that's a great idea. Commenting on the gentleman from Australia about access to libraries, I had a conversation last week with the dean of our libraries, and we're going to bring her in as a speaker to learn more about how we can get more easy access to all that information that's available in our libraries. One thing we could do, even with this group, is have a speaker, have maybe 2 or 3 experts in the library sciences talk to us about how to get better access to. I realize that each school has a little bit different policy, but maybe just talk about how to gain access to libraries so people that want to do that scientific research can have better access to that, and maybe we can even help connect them that actually would help us in research that we might want to do. And then lastly, I also do think that having a small panel of people trying to put kind of a game plan together for us is probably a little easier than having whatever we have, 21 people on this meeting today. I think could advance us and then bring that back. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Thank you, Al. Nina?
It's Nina. Thank you so much. And I greatly appreciate the presentations have been excellent. And I like the Carolyn and Al just now. I agree that one of the greatest benefits is the network, increasing the contact, creating opportunities for connection. And I think that that's a great benefit that this group and others can provide. So I agree not to have another organization or to move in that direction. But just from this meeting alone, I was listening to Bernard and the issue he raised. Clearly, so many of us have thoughts about that. And as an associate editor of another journal, I was thinking, okay, one of the issues I also have is finding reviewers, and what a rich network to be able to find reviewers from. Should people want to do that? It's a question of like having options. Just because you're an emeritus faculty member doesn't mean you all share. You have variety of interests. The other thing is, Jose, in the beginning, talked about we are volunteers. Well, let me just suggest to you that no, you don't have to be volunteers in all situations here. I am part of a research group where 3 of us are emeriti, and we just got a grant from the Next 50 Foundation in Colorado to focus on, to continue our work on age inclusivity in higher education. And with that grant over the next 18 months, one of the things that we'll be doing are, two parts of our method. One has to do with focus groups and another a Delphi panel. And I will be, and it's specifically in the areas of outreach and engagement. you know, being able to reach, and what better group to be able to draw people from, you know, is here. So I'm already like thinking in that direction. And yes, the work that we're doing with UNESCO, they reached out to us because of our work with age-friendly universities and our research there. And we assisted with them looking at their intergenerational work across a couple of countries, China and Ireland and Africa. Well, not Africa as a whole continent, but one of the countries there. And now they're asking us to do like a second report for them, how to get greater connections between universities and community learning centers and stuff. So, I mean, the momentum is there and it's building, but we have a lot to offer, and being able to share the directions and activities that people are involved with is very exciting to me.
Okay, thank you, Nina. Al?
No, I forgot one thing. You know, one thing that would be very helpful is for these meetings is if you list your name and then where you're from.
Yes.
I can clearly tell with the kangaroo in the background where Heinz is from, but I don't. It's hard to remember where you're from. So I just happened to think of that. So I put down after my name Michigan in the U.S. Not necessarily for this meeting, but for future meetings, it'd be helpful to know where people are coming from.
Yeah, Al, that's a good suggestion. Other comments? Heinrich, I saw you had a comment in the chat here about Emeriti. I don't know if you had some further things you want to say about that, but it's interesting that it varies so much, not only in North America, but globally. And as I understand it in Europe, from previous discussions, plus I think what you're saying here, is that the Emeriti status is not automatic in Europe, or that it's changing. I don't know if it's changing. Yes.
We have actually a young generation that does not really want the elder ones to do something in the universities. That's quite interesting. So they mostly what we still have is that for interested people, they can have email and database access for 1 year, but have to renew every year. And the difference, the only additional right that emeriti professors have is that you do not have to apply each year. You have to apply its fifth year.
Okay.
But typically, the university does not like to present the emeritus in their work. The only point is that in my case, I'm still doing intensive research and publishing journal papers each year. And these are listed because the university is getting money for this.
Okay. Well, I don't know if there are any other, or if there are any, thank you, Henry. I don't know if there are further comments, but while you're thinking about some additional comments or questions or suggestions you'd like to make, I'd like to, before we finish here, to put forward the specific proposal that we had, and that's to form a small group, maybe 3 to 5 people, to consider the discussion that we've had today. And I'm recording this, plus we'll have the AI companion meeting summary as background materials for this small group of 3 to 5 people. If you think that's a good idea, maybe that's not a good idea, but if you think that is a good next step for this group, to develop some kind of a plan forward. Now, what I've heard is that people that were not interested in forming another organization, but we might be interested in forming something that brings us together. Now, Jose has already established this group of people to bring us together. Maybe what we want to do is to expand the invitation to a broader collection of these organizations that we've listed. I don't know, and I don't want to predetermine what this small group of people might want to do. But the specific proposal is to ask 3 to 5 people with a leader, so we need somebody to lead this effort, to consider this for maybe a couple of months, Jose, whenever you want to get back together and come back. One of the conclusions may be we don't do anything. We continue to do what we're doing today, which might be fine. Another conclusion might be, well, here's a way that we can network, interconnect, collaborate beyond or to build on what Jose has already done. And there may be other possibilities. So what I'm suggesting is, I'm looking around the screen here, if there are any volunteers to lead this, and if there are volunteers to participate in a small group to consider what we've talked about today with the meeting resources that I'll make available to you. So with that, I'll open it up to discussion about if you think that is a reasonable next step, one, and two, if we do think that's a reasonable next step, who volunteers to participate in that? So I'm looking for comments.
I think it's a very reasonable first step, and I'm willing to participate if the group would like. At this point, not willing to lead.
Okay. Others? Both comments and a willingness to volunteer. Heinz?
Sorry, this is the real hand, not the pretend artificial hand.
Yes.
Yes, look, I would be quite happy to contribute, but I would be unapologetically pursuing this access to bibliographic database topic. So if people can put up with that, then yeah, by all means, put my name down. Look, I'm not a good leader in a situation like this, so I'm a bit of a maverick, and I want to be free to be able to pursue ideas and not seek consensus that much. Look, if it gets into my head to annoy people, I want to be able to do that.
Okay. Well, I think that's a part of a good team, is having diverse views. I think that's important. Sandy.
Carolyn, I do not like you anymore. I just saw the chat. I'm comfortable supporting. I will support, but I'm having eye surgery in March, so I don't really want to lead, but I'm quite comfortable working within the collective. And of course, reporting to the CURAC board with Walter to make sure that there's some consistency in what nationally may be good for us as an association.
Okay, well, looks like
Carolyn, I will talk to you later.
Okay, Al, yes.
I'm willing to participate also. Like the others, I'm not sure I want to lead it. And I think you're going to get that answer from everybody. So I'm thinking maybe what you do is just say get 3 to 5 people together, and I think we're all kind of leaders in one way or another. We'll just somebody just has to send out an email to invite people to a Zoom meeting, and I'm willing to do that. I don't know if I want to be. I don't want to call myself necessarily the leader, but I'm willing to call a group together to see where we go.
Okay, sounds good, Alan. Maybe what we'll do is refer to you as the convener.
I like that better than leader. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, William.
Yeah, it seems important to me that at least one of the leaders of the initiative so far should be on the group. If they want to call themselves ex officio, that's fine. So Jose or yourself or Walter should have your finger on the pulse, so to speak, to be to keep this network informed at least. I mean, not that the others can't, but I think it's a bit of continuity is what I'm suggesting.
Yep, I think. And Jose, your name has been mentioned. Do you agree to participate?
I agree to be in the group.
Okay.
I think you demonstrated in this meeting today and a meeting 2 months ago that you are a good person to bring things together. Also, Mr. President, now you're a president of something big and great and important. So you can give us your hand.
Okay. Yes, Michelle.
Nina had suggested me in the chat, and it could be possible. I guess the caveat with me is that I am not a retiree. So if you're trying to do things by and for retirees. I am not a retiree at this point. But I could certainly come to some meetings if you want to have someone from the AFB Global Network.
You know, Michelle,
So
I
I
think
wouldn't necessarily represent the whole network as I'm the North American lead.
You know, Michelle, I think that's a very important point about not being a retiree. And we've had discussions like that, similar discussions, both within the Big Ten organization as well as within ROHI and within our local organization here. And what we're starting to do is to realize that there are a lot of people who are pre-retirees, that they will eventually be retirees. And we want to reach out to them as well to address some of the needs that they might have as they're thinking about transitioning into retirement, whether it's immediate retirement or phased retirement. Everybody has a different personal experience. So I'm glad you brought that up because that is a discussion for us. So what I have right now is Heinz, Nina, Sandy, Jose, Michelle, and Al. Let me see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 6. I think that is plenty personally. I think any larger than that, it becomes a communication challenge. And Al Hermsen from the University of Michigan has volunteered to convene this group. Thanks, Al. So with that, I think that's a good next step for us. And again, this group may come back as Jose or Al brings us back together and say, you know, what we're doing is fine. Let's just stay in touch with each other. Or they may come back and suggest something different, which I think would be good as well. But to spend a little bit of time thinking about the discussion that we've had today, you know, the last hour and a half, we don't have to take the full 2 hours, I don't think. But I think that's a good next step. So if that is the next step, Jose, I think we've done.
Eric, I would like to invite Michelle Porter to give a brief idea about the next meeting. We discussed with Michelle for some time that in April, and she confirmed the date, April 15, which will be Wednesday again, in about 2 months' time, to chair the panel or the meeting, Zoom meeting, titled Retention of University Email Accounts for Retired Professors. Let me express just few ideas about the topic which we would like to discuss in April. One, that as mentioned tonight or today in this meeting, losing the university email account means several things. Besides what was mentioned today, library, access to libraries, is another point that we are learning in Slovenia, support to retirees who would like to get new technology, new experience, new software, updated, and they cannot be helped because it's a university policy to stop any support to retired persons who are no longer active in university. This is very dangerous because people, not being too courageous about new technology, would run away because they are not supported. We can say, well, they may have children, or they may have grandchildren, which, as we learned, is not so very good because grandchildren are a bit nervous because we, a bit elderly, are thinking much, not so fast as they do. So support and availability of technology is very important. And finally, I would say, before I ask Michelle to express her expectation about the meeting, I think it's about an ethical issue. Why some universities just do not allow their retired colleagues to have access? We do see that many universities do not do that, and some do. Is it ethically correct? I think we have to ask the question very straight. I don't think it's correct for people spending decades of their life in university, then you cut them away. And one of the reasons is security. We were trying to collect some information about the causes or cases that retired professors made any problem with security. No answer, no publication, nothing. Just a good reason to say, no, we can't do that. Universities have all the right to do what they decide to do. They are autonomous. However, some autonomous decisions may not be right. And disconnecting retired professors, I personally believe, is not right. Michelle, what would you expect from the April meeting, please?
One, I didn't know I was going to be speaking today, and I must admit I have not put a whole lot of thought into the session as of yet. But we do have a few things that have been happening at the University of Manitoba that I could certainly share. So we've done some research with regards to email accounts, and senior scholars and professors emeriti had some interesting findings from that. As a result of that, we've delved into some implementation work that goes a little bit beyond email, but around software that people have access to based on positions that they might hold in retirement. And we just completed doing a survey with University of Manitoba retirees. So all retirees, not just academics, and not academics who hold positions at our university. So those are some of the things that I'm planning to do. And of course, I will look into many of the things that you so kindly brought up as potential issues. I can look into some of those to briefly present on, but mostly have conversations about the next.
Okay. Jose, I'd like to mention one other thing with this small group, of which we've just, I think, Bill Copps, you are agreeing to be part of this group. Are you still here? Maybe he stepped away.
Sorry, it's me. It's Bill as in William.
Okay.
No, I hadn't. I've just agreed to do something for Curac. So I don't think I will. I think the 6 you have are excellent. So.
Okay, that's right. And sorry, William. I'm very sensitive to getting people's names correct. Thank you. What I'd like to suggest, Al and Jose, is that this group come back at least with a preliminary finding within 2 months. Now, that would be the April meeting. I don't know, Jose, if that fits into the plan with Michelle or not. But the reason I'd like to put some timing on that is to give that group, that small group, some sense of, what comes next rather than leaving it open-ended. So, Al, is that okay with you? Jose, is that okay with you?
That's fine. I can try to call the group together sometime in the next few weeks. I'll give you a little bit of a break from this meeting. Eric, you'll give me the I didn't write down all the names, and do you have name?
Yes.
You give me the names and email. I'll send out an email to the people and suggest 2 or 3 different dates and see if we can agree on doing something and sometime within the next month, so that before that April meeting we have some ideas to move forward.
Okay, thanks, Al, for taking the convener lead role on this.
Yeah, okay.
I do not see, Eric, any problem having any additional meeting. It's when the group decides something, it's easy to put a meeting together and have a discussion.
Okay, I didn't know.
The April meeting is the meeting that we planned as meeting every 2 months, but there is no limitation for whatever else we can do in the meantime or about April, or maybe just plan for a broader meeting in June to inform a larger group of members about what this group is proposing. So we are very flexible. This is everything meant online and easy to do.
Yep. So Al, I was just suggesting, I think Jose has a very good point there. Just trying to give you the group an indication that we do want to move forward with this. Are we going to do something or are we not going to do something? And if we're not going to do anything, that's fine too, but just help give you some sense of timing. Although we'll leave it up to you and your group to determine what that timing might be. Yes, Daniel.
Simply.
Sorry.
Well, no great addition from my side. I just heard, Eric, that you want to pronounce names correctly.
Yes, I do.
And Jose's name pronounced correctly is Jose.
Jose. Okay.
Right.
I know I've had some. I've had problems with that. Yes. No, I do. I absolutely do want to be certain that I pronounce people's names correctly.
Yeah, I thought so. Therefore, I raised my hand.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Other questions, comments? If not, I will return it. Jose?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this meeting. I'm really delighted to be able to attend such a meeting with such a group of people that we knew practically nothing 2 years ago. Now we have list of names, we know people, we can discuss, and we have some ideas what we can do together. Our group is a group bringing existing pieces together. We have no intention of creating something new. We have no power, we have no budget. We have practically nothing except wonderful people around. And just using technology can help us that we do accomplish something what we could not do a few years ago. I spent about 30 years in the area of data interchange, e-business, e-commerce, e-everything. And there I have learned what the industry, the governments can do by using technology. To be honest, universities are a little behind because they are not in business like companies are. They're not pressed by using technology at the speed that industry has to do. Sort of governments also a bit behind the industry, but they are moving. Industry can do a better work. And I believe that pandemic, COVID, gave us a lesson. What can be done? And we can go from there. Using technology is not just for those who like it and understand it and know what to do with this. There are thousands of retired professors who do not have experience. They were supported for years by Department of IT Support of University. When this is gone, a number of things are gone. Access to support, access to databases, access to colleagues. So I believe the meeting today was a great contribution to doing something good and smart and honest. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's really a delight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for organizing.
To the next meeting.
Yep, thank you, Walter. Thank you, Bernard.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Al. Thanks, Al, for stepping up. I'll send that information to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, folks.